Hello everyone. You are very welcome to this presentation, which is based on a senior cycle introductory lesson to the Holocaust. The Holocaust ended 75 years ago this year and is one of the most well-known and barbaric events in history. This presentation will aim to outline how a lesson could be planned and given to senior cycle history students. The Holocaust as an event falls into Topic 3, Dictatorship and Democracy in Europe 1920 to 1945, and so forms part of the senior cycle syllabus. As a teacher, it will be important to be able to plan and teach such an event. In addition to this, I feel it is important when discussing international history to use events as hooks, as using people or place may not create as much relevance as it would when studying local history. Lastly, I felt it was important to consider why we study history. George Santayana said, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." When we teach an event such as the Holocaust, this is ultimately the why behind such a lesson. Students will have come to understand the roots of the Holocaust from previous lessons in this topic. Students will have studied life in Nazi Germany and will have seen how Jews and minority groups were treated in the years leading up to the Holocaust. Additionally, students will have studied this event at junior cycle, while key concepts such as genocide will be familiar to them from their study at junior cycle. They will also have come across key terms such as anti-Semitism, propaganda and concentration camps. Finally, it is also believed that students will have heard of the Holocaust and will know some basics about it, such as the period of time it took place, what happened, and that it was a horrific event in the history of the world. In addition to their prior knowledge, it is also believed that there will be challenges to giving this lesson. One of the biggest challenges with such a lesson is relevance. The Holocaust ended 75 years ago. It took place in a different country and in a different time, which we live now. I will aim to overcome this challenge by incorporating the use of different primary and secondary sources into the lesson, as well as creating a student-centered classroom where each student has the time to reflect on what they are being asked to study. As aforementioned, the Holocaust is well known and this can make it difficult to both teach and study. The teacher as well as the student will have watched documentaries, read books and seen pictures of the event, which will mean they have already formed some form of opinion. In my lesson, I will aim to overcome this challenge by laying out the facts as they are. Finally, it is important for the teacher to know what stance they are taking. When teaching any controversial issue, the teacher must realise that what they say and do will influence the learner. I think the best approach to this lesson would be for the teacher to be a neutral facilitator. In order to grasp the key concept of the Holocaust, students must be given the facts, but then given time to generate their own understanding. This is how I would overcome this challenge. We will now look at the objectives of the lesson and the learning experiences that would be incorporated. This is an introductory lesson to the Holocaust and so will outline facts relating to how Jews and minority groups were killed, while there will also be an added emphasis on thinking about more complex questions such as its impact. The first learning intention will be to provide students with the methods by which Jews and other minority groups were killed during the Holocaust. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to outline methods such as concentration camps, death marches and death squads. The second learning intention is more complex. Students will be given the opportunity to analyse some of the crimes and living conditions for themselves, with the intention of gaining an understanding of how cruel the period was, while also beginning to appreciate the significance of the Holocaust. The lesson itself will comprise of multiple learning activities, all of which refer to the syllabus and have the intention of providing students with the key concepts and facts. To begin, the topic of the Holocaust will be introduced. Learning intentions and expected learning outcomes will be outlined, and the students will be given an overview of the learning experiences to be used in the lesson. Additionally, there will be a reference to the senior cycle key skills that will be incorporated in the lesson. Finally, as an icebreaker and introduction to the topic, students will take part in a quick Menti activity. They will be asked to write the first word they think of when they consider the Holocaust, and we will quickly analyse the results as a class. The main body of the lesson will begin by reading a poem written by American poet Barbara Sonic. I picked this poem as it is written from the perspective of young people. The poem references young people being taken away from their parents. It also describes how young people have a future and mentions the different occupations that they could consider. In the poem, all of these things that we take for granted were taken away from young people during the Holocaust, and so I felt it would create some relevance for the students in the classroom. In this activity, students will read a copy of the poem individually. They will take notes, create questions, or underline points that they think are important. Next, they will be given time to reflect on what they read. Finally, students will work in small groups to discuss and analyse what they read. The teacher will play a key role in facilitating this event. They will have to hand out and explain a little about what the poem is about. While the students are discussing their findings in the poem, the teacher will monitor the groups and take notes on interesting and relevant points that they hear. Once the group work is finished, the teacher will use the notes they made to facilitate a class discussion by eliciting points made by the students. The next activity will provide students with some of the facts associated with the Holocaust. Students will watch a video that is divided into 4 major stages according to Holocaust historian Doris Bergen. Before watching the video, the teacher will outline the 4 phases discussed in the video, and students will be asked to write these 4 phases into their notebooks. Students will then watch the video and take notes on what they think is relevant and important. Additionally, they will also be asked to categorize the notes that they take into each of the phases. Once the video has finished, students will be given time individually to reflect on what they saw. There will then be a think, pair, share activity. In pairs, students will discuss and analyze the video with the aim of understanding some of the facts mentioned. As the video does contain quite a lot of information, I decided that pair work would work best, as it means students can learn from each other, but it also gives each of them the opportunity to speak. By now, students will have started to gain an understanding of the killing methods used by Nazi Germany during the Holocaust, while students will also have begun to understand the societal effects of the event. The next activity will bring together both learning intentions through the use of primary and secondary sources, while also allowing students to take part in an engaging activity. Students will take a walking tour of the classroom. On the walls there will be different pictures and newspaper articles relating to the Holocaust. Each picture will also have some text giving the students some detail about what they are looking at. Students will be given time to walk around the gallery individually, but can also discuss what they are looking at with those at the same station. They will be asked to take notes, make comments, or create questions on what they see. Again, reflection will be incorporated into this activity. The event being discussed is enormous, so students will need time to comprehend what they have seen. Lastly, students will discuss their notes with their partner. The final activity will be used as both a summarization of the lesson and also a means of assessment. Students will take part in a circular brainstorm. The class will be divided into 4 groups, and students will be advised of the 4 themes that will be discussed. The themes will be Nazi Germany's reasons for the Holocaust, propaganda during the Holocaust, methods used by Nazi Germany to segregate and exterminate during the Holocaust, and general thoughts on the Holocaust from the lesson. The teacher will then analyse and reflect on what the students have written to inform follow-up lessons on the Holocaust. This lesson will aim to incorporate multiple learning and teaching strategies to give students the best possible opportunity to understand the Holocaust. The lesson is designed to allow students to work together to come to whole class conclusions and help them understand a horrific but important event in history. The lesson will use multiple forms of technology to make the lesson engaging and accessible for the students, while also making sure not to rely heavily on reading reams of text from a book. Finally, the student's role in the learning process will be emphasised throughout. I mentioned the teacher's role as a neutral facilitator in terms of a challenge with this lesson, so it is important to create an environment where students can take ownership of their learning. As part of every activity, students will be asked to analyse information and form opinions that they will have to discuss in groups or pairs. Not only will this provide them with the facts relating to the Holocaust, it will also allow them to try and answer questions such as why the Holocaust happened and its impact. The lesson will touch on each of the senior cycle key skills at some point, but I have picked out some of the key skills that I think will be quite relevant to the lesson. Information processing is a skill that will be present throughout. The learning intentions require students to learn about the killing methods used during the Holocaust, while students will also have to analyse the crimes committed. This will require students to take specific information on board and then process it so it can be discussed in the class. Students will also be given the opportunity to see the difference between information and knowledge. Information will be the facts that they learn, knowledge will be analysing the facts which will inform their opinions. The key skill of communicating will also be evident in the lesson. Students will analyse multiple forms of text including a poem, newspaper, along with other forms of communication such as video. Finally, from the learning experiences discussed on previous slides, you can see that working with others is a key skill that students will practice. Through group and pair work, students will identify, evaluate and achieve collective goals. By the end of this lesson, students will have been introduced to this difficult yet important topic from the senior cycle syllabus. through the use of different learning activities which have been used to create a student-centered classroom which is open to opinion and questioning, and where each student will have time to reflect on the facts. The Holocaust is a difficult concept to grasp for anyone. Therefore, this lesson will endeavour to introduce the event by breaking it down into smaller parts. The lesson will also lean on other subjects to help students get a broader understanding of the Holocaust. The poem activity will ask students to use their knowledge of poetry from their study of English to extract meaning, while the fact that the whole event took place on mainland Europe will mean their knowledge of maps and European geography will become important. Finally, the Holocaust was a product of a political ideology, meaning CSP will be significant. To finish, I have included the materials that will be used throughout the lesson, such as the poem, a link to the video, and also the materials used in the gallery tour. I would like to thank everyone for listening, and I hope you have a nice day.